Today's skill is looking at the mindfulness of thoughts. The handouts, you'll see that handout 15 is for this one, and it's in the distress tolerance module, of course. And this is a skill that I particularly like to use myself. It's one that might be mentioned in the green book, if you have the green DBT book, as mindfulness of thoughts or thought diffusion. So the mindfulness of thoughts, I'm going to describe this, it's in 4 steps. The first step is that just remember that when your thoughts come into your mind, you can just observe them. You haven't got to notice any criticisms or any judgments. Let your thought come into your mind and let them go. So one of the best metaphors I can use to describe this process is imagining your thoughts are like clouds in the sky, where you can first notice that cloud, you can see it, you can be curious about it, but try to pause or suspend any criticism or any judgment about that cloud. And then after you've been curious about that cloud, thinking where's it come from, where's it going, allow that cloud to pass on by, and then return your attention back to what you were doing in the present moment, mindfully, of course. The other thing is that we have to be careful not to get caught up in analysing our thoughts or trying to work out what they mean or what that says about us or where they come from. Sometimes when you're in distress, that is not the thing that you want to be doing right now. So it's probably a little bit easier just to allow your thought to come and to go. Acknowledge their presence. Don't try to control them. Don't try to push them away, because the more you try and do that, the more they'll come back with a bit of a vengeance. The second step is be really curious. Just maybe ask yourself, where do my thoughts even come from? Watch and see what you find out. Notice that every thought that does come does also go away. And of course, just be careful about when you try to evaluate the thoughts, because sometimes the more we get caught up in them, the more they hang around and they stay around for a lot longer than they need to. Step number 3 is to remember that you are not your thought. So just because you have a thought, it's not a fact. Just because you have an emotion, it doesn't mean that something is true. Your thought can just be sensations, activities, things that your brain is producing, but it doesn't mean that it's a thought that reflects reality in any way. There are some thoughts that are really useful, so we have to ask ourselves, is this a useful thought? Did this get me closer to what's really important to me right here, right now? But the vast majority of the time, if you have a distressing thought, it can bring up all sorts of sensations and emotions and bodily reactions, and it can really make it hang around with the sharp edges that doesn't necessarily need to be there. So remember that you haven't got to believe that your thoughts are true. You certainly don't have to act on your thoughts, and thoughts are not fact. The fourth step is try not to block or suppress your thoughts. When we push our thoughts down, the more that we do that, that can kind of work a little bit in the short term, but in the long term, they're going to bounce back up. So try to be careful not to get caught up in a habit of doing that. You may be doing that already, you may have been doing it for some time, or you may not be aware of it at all. So ask these, what are these sensations that these thoughts are meant to be helping me to avoid? Try and turn your mind back to the sensation in the body if you are having any, and then come back to what you want to do in the present moment. One other metaphor you might want to think of is imagining your thoughts as something you can put onto a leaf on a stream. So put the thought out of your mind onto a leaf, onto the stream, let it come, let it go, be really curious, watching it go on by, and then come back to the present moment and do what really matters most at the moment. The last bit I want to tell you about is that you can also do things with the thoughts if it might be helpful. You can sing them out loud, you can draw them on a piece of paper, you can draw them big in capitals, tiny little letters, you can use them with different colours, you can imagine projecting them onto a TV screen or a laptop screen, make them big, small, different shapes, different sizes. And this is what we call thought diffusion, where a thought that comes into our mind, we can take some step back, get some distance from that thought, and just try to remember that a thought is just a thought. It's just a part of the brain that's giving a bit of mental energy away. So I hope that's really helpful, but the homework for this week is for you to have a look at the next page on your handout, and you'll see lots of examples of how you can practice the mindfulness of thoughts or thought diffusion. So the homework is basically have a look at some of those, practice some of those, and make any notes at the end of anything that you noticed, what came up for you. So you can give us some examples in the comment below, about what are the things that you found helpful, or when were the times that you needed to use this exercise. Okay, give it a go, and I hope it's really helpful. Thank you.